Now, are you thinking about taking money from your pension, but you're not exactly quite sure where to start? Well, given the choice, about 90% of us would choose the income drawdown option. But let's be honest, pension drawdown sounds boring until you realize that if you mess it up, it could end up costing you an awful lot of money. Now, most people feel overwhelmed by pension drawdown due to the complex rules around income tax, the emergency tax rating, the fear of running out of money way too soon, inheritance tax implications, the different types and ways you can take out your tax-free cash, or just because pensions are always being used as some sort of a political punching bag, people just end up guessing, winging it, and then hoping for the best. But any financial mistakes that you do make will echo through your retirement, which means you could be leaving a lot more money on the table for the taxman. So in this week's video, I'm going to walk you through how to win the pension drawdown game in 10 simple steps with no jargon, no confusion, just exactly what you need to know to make some smart, confident decisions about your money in your retirement. Hi, my name's Simon, and I'm a chartered financial planner with decades of experience helping hundreds of families just like yours plan ahead with confidence by keeping more of what they've earned. Now, we all know that retirement used to be simple. You just work your 40 years, you get your gold watch, you take your final salary pension or your annuity or whatever, but not anymore. Now you're in control. And whilst that's empowering, it's also risky at the same time. Now, pension drawdown offers flexibility, but it also puts the burden of the planning, the investing, and the managing of your income squarely onto your shoulders. So that's why understanding what your options are and asking the right questions, but also following these 10 steps isn't just optional, it's now become essential. Now, getting pension drawdown right is one of the most critical financial decisions you're ever going to need to make. Because the truth is, you're highly unlikely to get a second chance at living your retirement on your terms if you make too many mistakes. But if you do get it right, you could enjoy decades of freedom, of flexibility, and more importantly, peace of mind. So it makes sense to give yourself the very best opportunity for the retirement they've worked so hard for, but without the stress, the guesswork, or even the regret. So in 2015, the UK government introduced pension freedoms, giving all of us full control about how we access our pensions from age 55, but that age is going to be rising to age 57 in April 2028. But after a decade of change, only 1 in 4 of us fully understand the rules. Now, drawdown means you can take as much of your pension as you like, whenever you like, to spend on whatever you like. But just because you can do that, that doesn't necessarily mean that you should do that. Without a clear plan, you could easily burn through your pension way too fast, or you could end up paying huge amounts of income tax and emergency tax as well. So step 1 is understanding that pension freedoms is an option, but it is under no stretch of the imagination a free-for-all. About 90% of people stay in their default pension fund, and that could be a big mistake as you approach retirement. Default funds are typically designed for growth over the long term, but they automatically become more cautious the closer you get to retirement. Now, they also may not offer the option of flexible income withdrawals either. So you need to make sure you check well in advance. So what that means is you could be sat in cash or similar at age 65. And that means you're going to have to start making a lot of active investment decisions as you start your retirement journey. So you need to ask yourself a serious question. Is the default fund right for my drawdown strategy? So step 2 is don't sleepwalk into retirement with a fund that doesn't fit your goals. Drawdown allows you to keep your money invested whilst you're taking money out as and when you need it. Think of it as like running your own retirement wages, but it's not automatic and there's no guarantee that your investments are going to last through retirement, especially if you overspend in the early years or take way too much investment risk. So the responsibility is squarely on your shoulders to manage your withdrawals wisely. Now, some people are going to choose to draw a set monthly amount, while others will take income as and when needed. And that could be either monthly or in ad hoc lump sums. So step 3 is understanding that drawdown means you're in charge of your decisions for better or for worse. Now, here's the £1 million question. How much can I take each year, but without running out of money? Well, there's no one size fits all answer, as I'm sure you're aware. Now, a common rule of thumb is the 4% rule. And that means you can withdraw 4% of your pension fund each year, increasing with inflation. Now, this is just a simplified guide. It's not actually a rule. And it was based on a worst case scenario for someone who was retiring in October 1968 and having the fund last them for at least 30 years. Now, the author of this research, Bill Bengen, he feels that this should now be amended based on more recent research to be the 5% rule instead. Now, what might be a better approach for you would be to look at your essential expenses, your discretionary spending like holidays, for example, and any income for other sources, and then decide how long you want the money to last for. Now, this may sound strange, but most people have got tremendous difficulty spending their money in retirement. And the result is they're not going to be living their best lives possible, especially whilst their health allows them to. And that could leave them having much regrets later in life. Now, the result of that, of course, is they're not going to be able to live their best life possible, especially when their health allows them to early in retirement. And that can leave them having many regrets later in life. So step 4 is live for today, but just keep an eye on tomorrow as well. And if you're finding value in this 10-step guide for Drawdown for beginners, almost like a survival guide, then please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel, where we're building a like-minded community. So come and join us as we move forward. Now, most people know that you can usually take 25% of your pension fund tax-free, either all at once or in smaller ad hoc bite-sized chunks. Now, that sounds like easy money, but timing, believe me, is everything. Now, should you take the tax-free cash up front and invest it elsewhere, such as in an ISA? Should you use it to clear your debt or even your mortgage? Or do you need to leave it untouched, allow it to grow until you actually need it? Now, not all pension providers are going to allow you this level of flexibility, especially some workplace pensions or older pension plans. So make sure you check what options you've got before you decide on income drawdown. Now, taking too much tax-free cash early could limit the future growth, but you're also going to be reducing your future income by 25% as well. So step 5 is to make sure that before you withdraw that tax-free cash lump sum, ask yourself, what's it for? And is it going to have a positive impact on my life right now? Now, this is where most people get caught out. Every pound you take out beyond your tax-free allowance is therefore going to be taxed as income. And that means if you withdraw too much in one go, you could push yourself into a higher tax bracket, and you may have to hand over thousands of pounds as a result to the HMRC. Now, worse still, your provider's not going to have your PAYE code. So it's likely that they're going to use an emergency tax code on a month-one basis the first time you take out money, and that's going to result in an overpayment of income tax. Now, yes, it's often reclaimable, but most people can't be bothered making that sort of an effort and dealing with the HMRC. And that means we're actually giving the government a £1 billion loan, which will never be repaid. So step 6 is to consider spreading any income withdrawals across multiple tax years to reduce your income tax liability. Don't let income tax sneak up on you and surprise you. Now, when you mean drawdown, your investments need to do 2 things. You need to look for steady growth, but you also need to protect the downside risks of the investment and the financial markets. And that means you need to be smart about taking investment risk. If you're too cautious, inflation's going to erode the buying power of your money. But if you're too aggressive, a market dip could wipe out years of your income. So step 7 is to diversify across asset classes such as stocks, bonds, cash, and even commercial property if you think that's the right move for you. Now, remember, you're also going to need to rebalance your portfolio regularly, maybe annually, but don't treat your drawdown pot like it's a lottery ticket. This is your retirement engine, so you need to keep it tuned and looked after. Now, if you're one of the lucky few to have a final salary or a defined benefit pension, you need to treat it like the gold-plated pension that it is. Now, these schemes offer a guaranteed income for life, inflation-linked, and often with spouse benefits as well. Now, these are the actual opposite of income drawdown, as they pay a secure income, a guaranteed income for life with no investment risk at all. So if you want me to put together a specialist video dedicated to whether the top 10 beliefs about final salary pensions are true or false, then let me know in the comments and I'll get that and I'll put that together for you. Now, exchanging these secure benefits for flexible drawdown benefits is possible, but the bar as to whether this will be suitable for you is set incredibly high, and regulated advice is mandatory for any transfer value over £30,000. So step 8, in most cases, keeping your DB pension is going to be the smart move, as it's going to provide stability, and that's going to complement and mitigate some of the volatility and the flexibility of drawdown. Now, I keep hearing that the state pension doesn't sound like much. It doesn't sound very sexy either, but it's currently worth about £11,973 a year, assuming you qualify for the maximum state pension. Now, about half of us are in the dark about how the state pension actually works, but scarily, about a third of us are going to rely just on the state pension for our income in retirement. So remember, the state pension is a contributory benefit, and the eligibility criteria to get this benefit can change, and it has done and will do in the future, especially as the state pension age rises. Now, just as a gentle reminder, the state pension is a guaranteed income. It's inflation proofed, so it's going to act as a very secure base and a foundation for millions of people, as well as their retirement plan. Now, of course, you can check your forecast online to see if you're eligible for the full state pension amount, and even small top-ups through your national insurance contributions can be excellent value. So step 9 is make sure you get the maximum state pension that you're entitled to. Now, here's something that most people don't think about until it's way too late. What happens to your pension when you die? Now, pensions are currently outside of your estate for inheritance tax and can be passed on tax-free within certain limits if you die before age 75. After age 75, your beneficiaries are going to pay income tax on what they inherit. That makes pensions one of the most tax-efficient assets to pass on to restore your wealth, but you need to nominate your beneficiaries properly with your pension provider. But all that's going to be changing in April 2027, and that's when our pension is going to fall into the inheritance tax rules. So if your estate is more than £500,000 for a single person, or more than £1 million for a couple, anything above that amount, once your pensions are included, you're going to be paying tax at 40%. So step 10 is to think very carefully about how your pension is going to be taxed if leaving a legacy to your family is important to you. Now, drawdown is just one aspect of your retirement, so I've included another 2 videos in this series about what happens to the state pension on death and the 5 biggest lies told about the state pension. So thank you so much for watching to the very end, and for your time and your patience as always, and we'll see you all again next week.